Assalamu alaikum and good day everyone. So for today's video lecture, we are going to learn about the computer assisted audit tools and techniques or CATs. I assume that all of you have already done watching the first part of this video lecture, which is about the input controls. So before we start, let me introduce myself. I am Nasrin Pili and I am going to discuss processing controls. So basically, after finishing the data input stage, transactions then enter the processing stage. So there are actually three categories of processing control. First one is the run-to-run controls. The second one is the operator intervention controls. And the third one is the audit trail controls. So let us first discuss the run-to-run controls. This control uses batch figures to monitor the batch as it moves from one program procedure to another. The purpose of this control is to ensure that each run in the system processes the batch completely and correctly. So there are specific uses of run-to-run controls. The first one is it will calculate control totals. After each run, dollar amount fields, hash total, and record counts are accumulated and compared to the corresponding values stored in the control record. So if any case that the record goes unprocessed, processed twice, or lost, this will be revealed by the discrepancies between these figures, since it will calculate control totals. Thus, it will also determine errors or discrepancies. The second one is the transaction codes. Transaction code of each record in the batch is compared to the transaction contained in the control record. This control ensures that only correct type of information is being processed. The third, a specific use of run-to-run control is the sequence check. A sequence check is a control which compare the sequence of each record in the batch with previous record. So this is specifically a control under the system of sequential master file, wherein the order of the transaction records in the batch is critical to correct and complete processing, because as the batch moves from one figure to another, it must be resorted in the order of master file used in each run. So this control ensures that proper sorting took place. So the second category of processing control is the operator intervention control. This control is used to lessen the processing errors due to operator intervention. Since we cannot totally eliminate the human or operator intervention, because there are still processes that needs to be done by humans, such as entering control totals, activating a program, and so on. Thus, the only thing that we need to do here is to limit the amount of operator intervention to lessen also the human or processing error. The third category is audit trail controls. Audit trail control is a control to preserve audit trails in computer-based accounting system. So as we all do, the preservation of an audit trail is an important objective of process control. In accounting system, every transaction must be traceable through each stage of processing, from its economic source to its presentation in financial statements. In an automated environment, an audit trail can be fragmented and difficult to follow. So these are the techniques used to preserve audit trail. The first one is the transaction log. Every transaction successfully processed must be recorded here. So this transaction log also serves as a journal. As discussed in the input controls, Transaction log is a permanent record of transactions and shall only contain successful transactions. So therefore, the unsuccessful transactions shall be placed in an error file. After producing a hard copy of these listings, it shall be sent to appropriate users to facilitate the input. The second technique is the log of automatic transactions. So there are actually transactions that are internally generated by the system. An example for that is the purchase of inventory, wherein the inventory falls or goes down to the preset reorder point. The system then automatically processes a purchase order. So in order to maintain transactions on these internally generated transactions, it must also be placed in the transaction log. The third one is the listings of automatic transaction. This is in connection with the internally generated transactions. To maintain control over automatic transactions processed by the system, responsible end users receive a detailed listing of all internally generated transactions. The fourth one is the unique transaction identifiers. As for unique transaction identifiers, each transaction processed by the system must be uniquely identified with transaction number. This technique is applicable in real-time systems which do not use source documents. The last technique is the error listing. A list of error records goes to appropriate users to correct and for resubmission. Let us now move to output controls. Output controls ensures that system is not lost, misdirected, or corrupted, and privacy is not violated. The exposure of this sort can cause serious disruption to operations and may result in financial loss to a firm. Generally, batch systems are more susceptible to exposure and require a greater degree of control. In the next slides, I am going to discuss on how to control the outputs from the two types of system, the batch system and the real-time system. Okay, so we have here controlling batch system output. Batch system usually produce output in the form of hard copy, which typically requires the involvement of intermediaries in their production and distribution. So we have here the output process. Output is removed from the printer and then it is separated into sheets, separated into other reports, reviewed for correctness by the data control clerk, and then sent through inter-office mail to the end users. In each stage in this process is a potential exposure where the output could be reviewed, stolen, copied, or misdirected. In the following slides, we will examine the techniques for controlling each phase in the output process. However, we shall keep in mind that not all of those techniques will be necessary to apply in every item of output produced by the system. As always, controls are employed on a cost-benefit basis that is determined by the sensitivity of the data in the reports. These are the techniques for controlling each phase in the output process. The first one is output spooling. In a large-scale data processing operations, output devices such as line printers can become backlogged with many programs simultaneously demanding these limited resources. This backlog can cause a bottleneck which adversely affects the throughput of the system. Applications waiting to print output occupy computer memory and block other applications from entering and processing stream. To ease this burden, applications are often designed to direct their output to a magnetic disk file like the flash drives rather than to the printer directly. This type of technique is output spooling. So later, when the printer resources become available, the output files are printed. However, there are exposures in creation of output file. So these are the unauthorized acts that the computer criminal may perform. First is to access the output file and change data values. By doing this, a criminal may effectively circumvent the processing controls designed into the application. The second one is access the file and change the number of copies of output to be printed. The extra copies may then be removed without notice during the printing stage. The third one is make a copy of the output file to produce illegal output reports. Fourth one is destroy output file before printing takes place. So the auditor should be aware of these potential exposures and ensure that proper access and backup procedures are in place to protect output files. So the second technique is the print programs. When the printer becomes available, the print run programs produces hard copy of the output from the output file. The print programs are often complex systems that require operator intervention. So we have here the four common types of operator actions. First is pausing the print program to load the correct type of output documents. The second one is entering parameters needed by the print run, such as the number of copies to be printed. Third is restarting the print run at a prescribed checkpoint after the printer malfunction. Fourth is removing printed output from the printer for review and distribution. The print program controls are designed to deal with two types of exposure presented by this environment. First is the production of unauthorized copies of output. Second is employee browsing of sensitive data. Some print programs allow the operator to specify more copies of output than the output file calls for. So this allows the possibility of producing unauthorized copies of output. So one way to control this is to employ output document controls similar to the source document controls discussed earlier. So an example in the billing for customers, the control for this is the pre-numbered check stop. At the end of each run, the number of copies specified by the output file can be reconciled with the actual number of output documents used. So in cases where output documents are not pre-numbered, supervision may be the most effective control technique, or a security may be present during the printing of sensitive output. The third one is the bursting. When output reports are removed from the printer, they go to the bursting stage to have their pages separated and collated. So the concern here is that the bursting clerk may make an authorized copy of the report, remove a page from the report, or read sensitive information. So the primary control against this exposure is supervision. For a very sensitive report, the bursting may be performed by the end user. So the next one is waste. Computer output waste represents a potential exposure. It is important to dispose of aborted reports and the carbon copies from multi-part paper removed during bursting properly. Communi- Computer criminals have been known to sift through trash cans searching for carelessly discarded output that is presumed by others to be of no value. From such trash, computer criminals may obtain a key piece of information about the firm's market research, the credit ratings of its customers, or even trade secrets that they can sell to a competitor. So computer waste is also a source of technical data, such as passwords and authority tables, which the perpetrator may use to access the firm's data files. So the control on this stage of output process is passing it through the paper shredder, so it would easily destroy sensitive computer output. The fifth one is the data control. In some organizations, data control group is responsible for verifying the accuracy of computer output before it is distributed to the users. So normally, the data control clerk will review the batch control figures for balance, examine the report body, eligible and missing data, and also record the receipt of report in data control batch control log. For reports containing highly sensitive data, the end user may review the data. Thus, in this process, it will bypass the data control group and go directly to the user. The next stage of output process is the report distribution. The primary risks associated with report distribution include reports being lost, stolen, or misdirected in transit to the user. A number of control measures can minimize these exposures. So for example, when reports are generated, the name and address of the user should be printed on the report. However, control is different for highly sensitive reports. So these techniques can be used. First one is that the reports may be placed in a secure mailbox to which only the user has the key. Second is that the user may be required to appear in person at the distribution center and sign for the report. Third is a security officer or special courier may deliver the report to the user. So the last stage for output process is the end user controls. Once the output reports are in the hands of the end users, it may be re-examined for any errors that may have evaded the data control clerk's review. So the errors detected by the users should be reported to the appropriate computer services management. Such errors may be symptoms of an improper systems design, incorrect procedures, errors inserted by accident during systems maintenance, or unauthorized access to data files or programs. So this is the last topic in output controls, controlling real-time systems output. Real-time systems direct their output to the user's computer screen, terminal, or printer. This method eliminates the various intermediaries. However, the primary threat here is interception, disruption, destruction, or corruption of the output message. The two types of exposure here is exposures from equipment failure and exposures from subversive acts whereby a computer criminal intercepts the output message transmitted between the sender and the receiver. So that will be all for this discussion. Thank you so much for listening.